Hello. Um, this is session 5 of the Lent Studies, and I, uh, I suppose if you're coming into this as the first one, you may not know kind of the pattern of things, but I'm hoping I'll get all the other sessions on, even though they'll be retrospective. But today's session, entitled "What About Injustice and Violence?" Those are two very challenging questions. Um, First of all, from Matthew 5, this comes after the Beatitudes in Matthew, and it's part of the Sermon on the Mount there. Jesus says this: "You've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. Give to everyone who begs from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you." These are difficult words. We've talked in previous sessions about the challenge of when somebody is taking advantage of you, and that does happen. And how do you respond in those situations? I don't think Jesus is saying just allow people to walk all over you as if you're a doormat. So that's something to reflect on. Questions. So it's all on this sheet. So I should have said that probably. There's a sheet, and there's also a resource sheet which talks about Oscar Romero. You can go on a website as well, which has got a nice little animation about Oscar Romero's life. But the first question is, when have we experienced violence? And I remember as a child just being randomly hit on my way home from Scarborough High School many years ago, just completely randomly, and what a shock that was to experience that violence. So you may want to pause and think about that. Second question is, who do we go to? Where do we go when we need some peace? Now, many of us have a picture of a place, perhaps, that gives us a sense of peace. One of the places for me is certainly the Taizé community in France. That's the place where I met my wife, Catherine. But actually, at the heart of the service there, at the heart of the prayer 3 times a day, is a 10-minute silence. And you're sharing that silence with people who don't speak your language, people from all over Europe and the world. And at the heart of the prayer is the silence, and at the heart of the silence is a deep sense of peace and solidarity as well, of being united with one another. You may want to reflect on, where do you go to when you need some peace? Then I want you to read the story of Oscar Romero. I'm not going to read that out to you now, but just to say that he was killed when he was taking a Eucharist. He knew it's very likely he was going to be killed by security forces. He was arguing for rights for people who were very, very poor. And so he was killed as he celebrated Eucharist. It's a very sad story, but it's worth reading and worth responding to. The next bit on the order is to have a conversation about peace and violence in the world today. How do we do that? Because I'm here and you're there and other people are elsewhere. But maybe if you have thoughts about this, we could find some kind of forum where we could discuss it, perhaps on WhatsApp or something like that. But at the moment, I'm just trying to catch up and get a few things out there. So I'm not going to be able to set that up right today, I don't think. Then we have this little quote about Rosa Parks. Many think of Rosa Parks as demure, pleasant enough seamstress who backed into history by being too tired to get out of her seat on a bus one day. In reality, she'd been trained in non-violence at Highlander Folk School. Peace is a skill that can be learned. We know war can be learned, but we seem to think that someone becomes a peacemaker just by a change of heart. What do you think about that quote? Why does Jesus say, turn the other cheek and pray for those who persecute you? I have a friend who would argue that that's partly about humiliating the person who asks you for more than they should ask. And, there's many ways of understanding that. certainly non-violent approaches that Martin Luther King believed in and preached, they were complicated and not easy, and people really did have to be trained in making peace and being non-violent. And the last question there is how is it possible to reveal the truth to those who are violent and oppressive? That's a really hard one. You may want to pause. So, how are you feeling about all this? I always ask that question. You may want to pause again and think, how am I feeling? Not how am I thinking, but how am I feeling? How is my heart with all of this? And then move on to a question, what more can I do about violence and injustice? Okay, I'm going to lead us now in a short prayer for peace, the interfaith prayer. Lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our heart, our world, our universe. And then I suggest we sing a song about peace. I mean, I don't know what you want to, maybe if you've got Singing the Faith, you could look up a song there. I'll sing you a very short song from Teze, which is actually in Latin. I mean, the trouble about Teze is people speak all these different languages. A lot of them are not in English. This one's in Latin, so everyone theoretically can understand it, but actually that means that probably nobody can understand it, but I'll translate it for you. But the song goes like this. Da pacem Domine, da pacem Domine, in diebus nostris, da pacem Domine, da pacem Domine, in diebus nostris. Which literally means give peace, Lord, in our time. You've got some homework at the end of the sheet, so hopefully you can do that for next week. And God bless you during the coming week. Bye-bye.